All right, cool. Welcome to the stream. Right, I just have a chart up here of Bitcoin here on the right and the S&P 500 futures here on the left. So we're going to see what the initial reaction is here. Initial reaction is up, but a lot of times these initial reactions are kind of just noise as the algos kind of try to understand what the headlines mean. And I have some moving averages and a Bollinger Band on price here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more. So we will plot a marker here on the announcement. That announcement level is at 53.75. Bitcoin is moving up a little bit. We're going to see if we start taking out these lows here, we could probably see Bitcoin dunk under 56K is what I'm guessing. Otherwise, if it likes what the headlines are saying, then potentially we could leave this area and start working our way back up and retrace a lot of this, move down that we've seen since the last 24 to 48 hours. Start clawing our way back up on Bitcoin. All right, let me look at the headlines here and see what we got. So the Fed holds rates, no surprise there. Fed says lack of further progress towards 2% goal in recent months. So they're not liking the reduction in the rate of decrease in the inflation rate. Fed maintains mortgage-backed security redemption cap at $35 billion per month. Will reinvest excess MBS principal payments into treasuries. So they're rolling off mortgage-backed securities, it looks like, and any profits from that will go to buying treasuries, so they're going to help support the bond market. So far, Bitcoin is liking what it's seeing or hearing, or at least the traders are. So the vote was unanimous on the rate decision. The Fed will slow the decline of balance sheet by cutting treasury redemption cap to $25 billion per month from $60 billion per month starting the June 1st. So that's basically the tapering of the balance sheet roll-off. And that was one thing that we were looking for. FOMC flags lack of further progress toward inflation target in recent months. The FOMC is strongly committed to returning inflation to its 2% target. So that's a line they've been holding for a while. There's Mr. Bob. Inflation has eased over the past year and remains elevated. You can say that again. The Fed does not expect it will be appropriate to cut rates until it has gained greater confidence in inflation moving towards 2%. So, there's a thought that at some point they're going to tell us get used to 3%, but they haven't really pivoted to that, and they're sticking to their guns on the 2%. All right, Bitcoin's moving up to 58, so a bit of some positive reaction here on the initial headlines. Now we're going to get a reaction, and then we have to wait for the press release, which comes out in about 25 minutes. So we'll see what we get here. And then I'll talk about kind of structurally what we're going to be looking for. But I want to make sure we get through all these headlines first. U.S. short-term interest rate futures contracts rise after the Fed releases the May 1st FOMC statement. So most likely they're looking for cuts in November, the first cut. So we went from like them expecting 4 to 6 cuts this year to just now 1 cut in November. Now, I think that was going to be a reactive cut. We can talk about that some more as we progress, but I think that's going to be a reactive cut, which means that economy should start weakening to the point where they feel like they have to ease. Because if they're concerned about inflation getting to 2%, their approach is they're going to keep yields up. And so it doesn't make sense that they would be cutting if they're concerned about getting to that 2% inflation target. So really that would be the Fed fund futures traders are looking for or expecting probably some economic weakness. And so are we. We think that the consumer is really starting to hurt here. Right, you're starting to see a little bit of a reaction back down now on the futures here for the S&P 500. We're getting some volatility warnings here on Bitcoin as well. So this is where we're going to find out if this move up retraces. If we start going past the announcement level at 50.53, then that's where we start looking for that move down. It potentially takes out these lows that we have from the overnight session. Our overnight low looks like it's 50.38. So I'm going to mark that off actually. Start cracking below that, we may start heading down toward these lower levels. So we're going to keep an eye on that. So basically the Federal Reserve signaled fresh concerns about inflation and reaffirms that it's trying to get toward that 2% goal. So that's kind of the initial takeaway here after they hold again. This is one of the longest pauses actually after a hike that we've ever seen. And typically that precedes an eventual rate cut, which also precedes a recession. So kind of where we're at. We think we're somewhere between 1 to 2 quarters away from where, and they may not announce it then, but it'll be a backwards looking statement. But within Q3 or Q4, they'll acknowledge that there's a recession.
Yeah, Coney and Coinbase likes it so far.
Yeah, because that's just going to track Bitcoin. All right, so that's pretty much it for the initial announcement. And then what we're going to get in about 20 minutes or so will be Powell come out and he'll talk more about kind of what they're thinking in terms of policy in the next quarter. What the algos and the traders are going to be looking for, investors or institutionals are going to be looking for, is any kind of hint at whether or not they, would be open to a cut or not. Some have said that, they may lean toward a hike. So you got to really watch what he says here. And he knows that if he's at all dovish in his comments, this market's going to jump up. Now, even though we have that, the other thing that came out today was the quarterly refunding announcement from the Treasury, which means that, they're looking at the composition of their debt. Now, the big elephant in the room with that is how much of the long end of the bond issuance. So anything other than a T-bill, 5, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year bonds, how much of that. And looks like they're kind of maintaining the same ratio. So they did also say that they would be increasing the bill issuance. So that is a little more bullish for the market. But the takeaway is that it's still heavy on the long end, and that may weigh on the market in the short term. And then you have the election year seasonality, which tells us that we're going to stay probably down into May and then start getting out of that with a bullish run from June into August or September. That's typical election year seasonality. Then you get a pullback and then one more final push up into the election. So pullback in September into sometime in October, and then a pretty good rally into election day.
Everybody, is Bob with Trade Genius. Usually I do fun ads. I talk about our service, but I want to be serious with you for a second. We've been helping a lot of people trading for a long time. As you can see here, I want to let them do the talking for me for a change. But most importantly, we want to help you too. If you've not joined our service yet, come check us out, tradelikeagenius.com. Full service. We have a chat room. We have the algorithms for you. We give trades out every day. We educate you. So go to tradelikeagenius.com. Check us out. What you get out of our service is much, much more than what you put into it. And we'd like to see you in the room. Thanks for listening.
Bitcoin's still pushing up here. So this is actually a rather muted reaction relative to what we've seen in past FOMC announcements. So I think it's all about the presser at this point, guys. So the tapering of their balance sheet roll-off is actually a little higher than the street was expecting. They were expecting about a $30 billion taper, and the Fed said it would be $35 billion. So what does that mean? Probably that the Fed was uncomfortable with the yields in reality, because that means 105 billion less gross issuance needed in Q3. Now, maybe that's why Yellen stayed heavy in Q3, because she knew she was going to get some relief on that. So, but that helps yields come down, actually, that sort of action. So the Fed's kind of giving you they're kind of tipping their hand there a little bit. All right, now we're getting a push back below the announcement level. You guys can see that over here.
I like that it held it though.
Yeah, so far. This is going to be about the presser. One thing though, it's like every single time Powell has come out, he's just been very hawkish, right? In the last, 6-7 meetings. And every time this market digests it and then just takes off over the next coming days.
What's interesting, Phil, is the Fed and the Treasury aren't really providing much liquidity near term.
In fact, let's look at that.
I think if it's going to move higher, it's going to move higher on buybacks and then reassessing the third quarter earnings on May 15th.
Yeah. So liquidity has been going south. This is the blue shaded areas liquidity. Weekly signaling risk off. Daily actually signaled risk off. And that's why we're thinking that, things would snap back down, even though we're pushing up the last few days. So it's really going to come down to this reaction here.
Yeah.
In terms of the chart, one thing I wanted to show you guys was the daily, and these levels here are just swing lows that we may take out depending if we go lower. But the Bollinger Bands here, essentially, if you're trending down, right, then we were talking about this in the room today, then the way the options and the gamma flows and all that stuff work is that, it tends to be, tends to be a magnet. So the draw would be is if we start dropping, then we hit the lower Bollinger Band, and that would hold price until we get like you see here, we held outside of it, and then we get oversold, and then you get a snapback mean reversion. And this is based on the 20 SMA. Jam Croissant was saying that, we're in a window of bullishness from the 1st to the 15th, basically OPEX. And if we can start pressing up to the top of that Bollinger Band, this is a 1.5 standard deviation setting. Potentially we can get back into this regime, right? Where we keep grinding higher. So that's kind of like what we need to see resolve here. If the reaction is negative to Powell, then we maybe, we start heading toward that lower Bollinger Band. Then, in terms of the S&P 500 futures, we're heading towards 5,000 in that case. If we flip over to the actual index, the SPX, we filled this.
If you want to trade, take a look at SVIX for the vol crush, but Powell can add vol really fast as he opens his mouth. So it's one of those things that you front run it at your own risk.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. So on the S&P 500, if we start going negative on the announcement reaction, then we'll see 49.83 most likely, and then Bitcoin probably comes down and hits that 21 weekly EMA. Got very close to it pre-announcement. We're bouncing up. Bitcoin's been very volatile. It's not, that's not a very liquid instrument, so it moves quite a bit intraday. Let me put the announcement marker on the S&P 500 because we'll flip back and forth on that.
Yeah, the VIX is down. I'm keeping an eye on the SFIX trade for our members, and I'll put it in the alert if I see one that I want.
So this is the 21 weekly EMA on Bitcoin. It's kind of the level we're looking at, holding on a pullback. Looking at a daily chart, that's a pretty major moving average level. So that's where we think we may see a potential bounce off of this. And then what we do from there is really important. I think, looking at this level here,
Brian, I got my war shirt on today.
We want to see price get back above this black line here, 59,224. If we get a bounce off that, I think that would be a bullish reclaim. And then we'd want to see it stay above that. So I think for all markets, it's kind of like making it through May without the wheels falling off.
Interesting, Phil. We can't really break below the announcement level, which is, I find, positive. Didn't try to swing both ways.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the smallest reaction range we've seen in ever. Like, this is tiny. I mean, we're 10 points from the announcement level to the high.
And this was supposed to be a 4% move option pricing.
Right. So, and VIX, I don't know, not really. It's come off a little bit, but not a ton.
Nope. Yeah, I'm watching SFIX. They're waiting for him to talk.
Yep. I think that's what we're being told here by the markets is it's all about the presser. That starts in 10 minutes.
Guys, smoke them if you got them.
All right, updated the timer there, so for the press conference.
Hey guys, if you want to go to New Zealand, Fiji Airways is having bargain prices. They must be hurting.
So over here on the right, we got the VIX, which is a volatility index. If that starts to really drop, then you're going to see these, most of these instruments are going to start pushing up. It's going to be all about what he says. Well, I'll put up a condensed version of this later.
Just so you guys know, there's a green worm on the SFIX hourly.
So that's our announcement range, initial announcement range. Denise, that's funny.
Buys moving. We entered the SFIX trade, SVIX. Powell, don't disappoint me, brother. ExxonMobil came back a little bit. It was getting pummeled.
All right, so they grabbed whatever stops that may have been up here. Now we're going to see if they're going to pull that back in or we're going to take off here. VIX, you can see VIX is dropping over here.
Yeah. Yeah, SPY and SFIX are moving now.
But again, it's just far too early to tell until he starts getting into the meat of his presser. So, we got positive 1,000 tick reading, which is basically telling you that there's some broad moves in the market. Now, if this comes back in, he potentially trapped anybody that was trying to trade a breakout up here, and this can come back in. So you got to watch. Bulls have a ton of work to do. They lost a lot of levels. Still a pretty small move so far, but we are getting close to about 20 points off the announcement level.
Starting to kick it a little bit now.
So this moving average up here, up at 50.87, this is a key. For me, I want to see it get above this level. If it does, then, we may get a move. If not, this could be a potential area where it stalls out. So watching that up there, all of this is just, to me, is just positioning or ultimately presser. And, because all the algos have is to go off of is A, they held rates, what the rate futures are saying, which is a one cut at the end of the year. And then there are comments about the balance sheet tapering, which wasn't, that wasn't confirmed. We weren't sure if they were going to talk about that or not. Balance sheet tapering should provide more liquidity to the market, so that should be bullish. So that kind of counteracts some of the bearishness that was interpreted from the quarterly refunding announcement by the Treasury. All right, so he's getting close to coming on stage here. As you guys can see, time is up. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that countdown clock. VIX is ticking back up here a little bit.
Those guys from the VIP room that joined me in those SPY calls, I set my stop now at 461. So nearly almost $500 gain so far.
All right, Mr. Powell is at the podium. See what he says.
And I'm out.
This is why it's important to wait for the presser, because, you know, it's all about what's going to come out of his mouth over the next couple of minutes here. Gold's up about 1%.
Hey, Phil, Kyle just posted, Starbucks CEO said our sales the upcoming quarter are going to drop like a rock.
Did he really say that?
That says in quotes.
You know, I think these guys, you know, these guys obviously employ economists because they got to navigate a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I think they're all being told that, hey, you got to buckle up because, you know, the forecast here for the economy and the consumer especially is not healthy. All right, we're getting a pretty negative reaction here. What would be concerning for bulls is if we break this range low here so we're back to the announcement. All right, so basically erased all of that pump, and that's a concern if you're thinking or if you're betting that this is going up. So now this range low at 50.51, that needs to really hold here. So we're watching. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. So Powell says inflation eased substantially over the past year, but still too high. Inflation is too high and further progress is not assured. So he says they've made considerable progress toward the dual goals, which is employment and price stability.
Yep, 9% and 24%.
So very similar to his last comments, last meeting. So let's see here. Highly attentive to inflation risks. Well, I would hope so there, Jerome. That's your job. Restrictive stance has put downward pressure in inflation and economy. I don't know about that. Risks to achieving the dual goals have moved into a better balance over the last year. All right, so he still hasn't said anything earth-shattering yet.
Looks like it's like Denise in our chat room together. Come on, guys. You guys are boring too. Let's get some action in the chat room.
Okay, so we went from negative 1,000 tick to negative positive 1,000 tick. So super bipolar reaction.
I'll probably re-enter calls here. Maybe I won't. I have SVX, so I think I'll let that run.
Well, the problem is that 55 EMA. If all we do is go up there and tag that and reject, then you're gonna have a major de-risking. But if we start claiming above it, then yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching it like a hawk. What would you think, Phil? Breakthrough? I'd like to see it turn. Well, it won't turn higher today, but I'd like to see it break the Ranger too at 50.95. Yeah, 50.95.
All right, Bitcoin's hitting extreme volatility readings.
Misty went green.
Powell, inflation data received this year have been higher than expected.
Coney's up $1 now. Coinbase is up $10 now.
Yeah, because Bitcoin is just following Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is just following the S&P 500.
Yeah. I mentioned those things to you guys because these are great derivatives of Bitcoin.
Oof, negative reaction.
Didn't like that. Misty and Coney are good
Bye-bye gains.
Yeah, it's hitting that fib resistance, Phil.
This is an interesting battle here because they're very sensitive to what he's saying. Fed officials are acutely aware of hardships posed by high inflation. I'm just rattling off the kind of the key headlines here off of what he's saying.
Yeah, it's here. Please don't tar and feather me statement.
Our policy actions are guided by our goals. Oh, earth-shattering news there.
The other Denise. I love it.
So the reaction there was, I believe, because he was saying that their inflation data was higher than he was expecting. Powell says it's likely that gaining greater confidence will take longer than previously expected. We do not expect it will be appropriate to cut rates until we have greater confidence inflation is going back to 2%. Reducing policy too soon or too much or too late or too little have risks. So if you don't get it just right, is what you're saying. Well, I would say that's kind of common sense. Hey, Bob, if we do it too soon or do it too late or too much or too little, it might be bad.
I want to get paid $2 million to say nothing too.
These guys, nobody knows what they're doing.
They do.
They're just guessing.
We just don't know why they're doing it.
They're just guessing.
How can the Fed say inflation surprised them when they have 2,000 economists on their payroll and they have all the raw data?
Well, so far the market likes what he's saying. The Powell pump is 14 for 14.
Yeah, and here goes SFIX is ready to break 40 here.
Yeah, VIX, you guys can see VIX is starting to confirm here with a lower low. So
let's see what oil's doing. See if oil likes it. Oil's not much. I mean, if they want to stop raising interest rates, they just should spend all their money selling futures contracts on oil, or maybe stop the 17 wars we have over there. You know, they could destroy Russia by letting Russia produce all the oil at once, and the price of oil would collapse. People really make my head scratch.
So that's the spot up there, 50.88. I'm watching that area. If we start accepting over that, then we could start seeing this pump.
Yeah, I'm going to buy calls again.
But until then,
yeah, I'm getting prepared. Sometimes this guy doesn't give all the bad news out early. He kind of milks it along, you know.
Slowing the pace of QT does not mean our balance sheet will shrink less than it would otherwise. What he means by that is they have a goal to get that balance sheet down, and just because they're going to slow down, that doesn't mean that it's changing their target for where that's supposed to be. Total portfolio runoff will be about $40 billion per month. He says that the policy rate is restrictive. So that means that they're not interested in raising rates anymore. I do think policy is restrictive and weighing on demand. I saw that today in the JOLTS report, job openings report. So he thinks that yields are high enough, and I think that's what we saw earlier with their basically their talk of tapering, that they're comfortable there. They don't want to see yields higher. So that's the takeaway. I think it's a key takeaway here. The Fed stands ready to act if unexpected labor weakness occurs. I think they're expecting a recession, and I think what they're saying is you can expect the typical accommodative stance if we start rolling over. So I think that puts a lot of credence into the probability of a rate hike in Q4, or a rate cut, in Q4.
So Phil, I think you're right. I think Janet's saving all of her Treasury bill ammo for the August and September QRA announcement.
Yeah. All right. So we got a full-on breakout here on Fuchs. Once again, Powell pumps the market, and that's what I was saying. I mean, this guy, every time he talks, the market's going to go up, and so that you just have to kind of expect that's going to happen.
Yep. I'm back in the cycles again. Post it in the room.
Powell says unlikely next policy move will be a hike. So that's why you're seeing this push higher here, because that was something that the markets were really keen on, is whether or not they would hike. So he's basically saying we're happy where rates are. We're holding them. We'll cut when the economy rolls over. We're not looking to hike anymore. That was a big concern for the market. So the bulls have the ball. All they have to do now is hold it above 50.90.
Yep. Yeah, I jumped that trade, Phil. I bought calls again. Post in the VIP room. If you guys want to get in the VIP room, we post these kind of trades. Posted 2 trades. You had already paid for a year of your VIP membership. FYI. Okay, now that we have that set, Phil, let's see where the standard deviation is on us. That's ES. So
yeah, it's up at 52. It's really high.
Yeah, 1.5 is 51.44.
But what's key to that though is that 55 EMA. So 50.90. If you start trending above that, then that's your target.
Yeah. So Phil, I gave you the trend indicator, so I have it loaded up on a special chart.
For what?
I got the 55 EMA and the Bollinger Bands for it.
Actually, you want to base it on the 20 SMA.
So I have the 20 also up.
55 is just kind of like a bull bear.
Yeah, that's what I have. I usually have 21 on, actually.
And then we're running into, I gotta remind myself what I put up here, 55 on the 4 hour.
Yeah.
This is another key spot, this 5105 area.
Yeah, just so you guys know, Jam Croissant likes the 21 moving EMA.
He said 20 SMA on his last podcast.
Yeah, he said 21 on another one, so.
Maybe he uses both.
Yeah, who knows?
He just has a little range in there.
I've had 21 on forever. It works for me.
They're both legit.
Yeah.
I mean, usually the variance between them is very small.
Yeah, we use the worm at 13, so it all depends on how aggressive you want to be, right?
All right, so everything's pumping. Bitcoin's up about $2,000 off the lows. The VIX is dropping like a stone. What else is new? Powell says if inflation proves more persistent and labor market remains strong, then it could be appropriate to hold off on rate cuts.
So, guys, if you took those 2 SPY trades with me from the VIP room, you're up $1,120 right now.
Powell said to hike rates, we'd have to see evidence that the policy isn't sufficient to bring inflation down to our goal.
And I'm setting a stop here. I think you can really run, though.
Yeah, as long as you hold 50.90, you're good. We start, for some reason, reversing under that, then watch out.
I wouldn't necessarily hold these overnight, though, because they have a tendency to reverse the next day. So,
unexpected weakening in labor market could warrant a cut.
Whoa, market is all over the place.
He says one wrong thing, and the algos just go berserk.
We're just, look at it now. We're just jumping, and the option prices aren't moving, but the price is going straight up. I guess we're getting some vol crush now, Phil.
Well, yeah, I mean, VIX just dumped. Let's see. Powell says unexpected weakening in the labor market could warrant a cut. I think, and they've been starting to give you guys, basically, if you read between the lines, that they're expecting rate cut because the market, I think, is going to roll over. I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Whether or not rates are at the peak will depend on the data. So he just went from saying they don't want to hike to that depends.
We're flying all over the place now.
There's not an obvious connection between easing in financial conditions and inflation. But if financial conditions are tight, then you think it does affect inflation. So it works one way but not the other.
Yeah. That's called double speak.
That is some serious drugs.
Now you know why people are always confused. They're not really speaking to you, people. They're speaking to the algorithms. Mm-hmm. Every word that he says has been tested through an algorithm. Coney's at $1.30 now. As I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I just didn't want to be too heavy. I got Misty. What's Misty doing? Misty's up 50 cents now. Misty's coming back strong.
Yeah, Jeffrey, that's why I was saying before the announcement, I was, if you get into a partial, down here, 55,800 that's like the big moving average level. Still could get down there. I mean, this reaction, we have to kind of see how, if we take out the lows of the announcement after this move, then we're probably going to see a substantial move lower. That's typically how these go. All right, let's see if he says anything new here that's of interest. Short-term interest rate futures rise as Powell speaking.
Giovanna said gold spot's up $27. Maybe I should check my portfolio here. We be ripping. All right, back to nice and green for the day. URA's killing it. NVO, TLT's up nicely. Misty went green. FCX is green now. Glaxo's green. The only thing down on my portfolio are 2 of the pipeline guys. ExxonMobil's down a little bit too. That's that.
So we're bullish above this little bubble here, and I would get bearish below it. So right now, bulls have the ball, and we're coming up to the key level here, up into 51.23 as well.
Guys, those calls, I'm still in those calls now. They're at 474 now, 467. So beautiful, beautiful.
So this is the daily 9 EMA. We keep an eye on that. It's shorter term bullish bear line, bullish or bearish line. So we pushed up into that. This is exactly what the bulls needed to do, and they got to keep pushing over this level. That's 5104.50 on the futures. They need to keep pushing over that. Otherwise, if this is potential, sometimes what happens, you get an overthrow of this and then a rejection. It looks like it's making it over and it doesn't. So we have to watch that 5104.50 holds. Then this range here is, we pushed up into it, got a rejection off the weekly 9 EMA, we pushed back down. We did hold a higher low, but ultimately we've got to get back above. And this also coincided with the 50 moving average on SPX. Now the 50 moving average on the futures is a little different. And so if we do get back above into this range, then I would look for a target of this previous swing high at 51.55 and change, and ultimately push up into this daily 50, where potentially we could see a rejection there. But first things first, got to establish acceptance over this daily 9 EMA. And so we'll call that level 5104.50.
Okay, guys, I moved the stop and target on SVIX. For those who aren't trading with Trade Genius, I put that trade out for you guys. Move your stop up to 40.25, your target to 43. You never want to go home to lose money if you get a nice move like this out of the gate. You can complain about not making enough money. Don't complain about losing money.
Powell says, my expectation is that we will see inflation move down this year. Since December, we have had higher goods and housing inflation than expected. The signal we are taking is that it will take longer to get on a sustainable path to 2% inflation. Now traders are pricing in September as a likely timing for the first rate cut. But what that's telling you guys is that the pros are thinking that the economy is going to start to weaken and jobs are going to start to weaken ahead of September then. So that's what that means. That's not actually bullish news. Now you could run up into that, but ultimately beyond that is not good. Powell says, don't know when we'll reach confidence to cut rates. We do need to take a signal from 3 worse than expected inflation readings, meaning that it hasn't come down as fast as they would like. Okay, we're getting another extreme volatility reading on Bitcoin. As you guys can see, we've come up to this level where essentially if we're going to start grinding back up, and this whole move here has just been a, kind of a head fake lower, this is the key level right here at 59,200 that we need to get back over.
Guys, I moved that SPY stop to 462 and I'm out. So awesome day today. It's funny, Phil, when you get those Bitcoin volatility readings, you get a short-term reversal in SPY too.
Yeah, that's a pretty, when you get that, I mean, look, we're going to be hitting about $3,000 off the lows here pretty quick. So, you're going to trigger those.
Remember, if you guys bought Coney and Misty because you heard it here, on Monday they go ex-dividend, the price of your shares are going to go down. You'll get the dividend, but check their prospectus out. These dividends could be between $1 and $3. So it could be, you could wake up with a short-term heart attack.
So Powell says the signal we are taking is that it will take longer to get on a sustainable path to 2% inflation. Yep. So now market's pricing in September cuts. Powell says the economy has been very hard for forecasters to predict.
Yeah.
Like that's your one and only job. You have 1,000 PhDs on the payroll.
I swear. They must sit back and say, okay, Jerome, every time you say this word, we're going to do a shot. I wonder if they know how, with such derision they're held. The TikTok dude is yakking away.
Fed's Powell says, I am less confident than before that 2024 inflation will ease. So I expect inflation to go down in 2024, but I'm less confident than before that it will happen.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for sharing. Hey guys, while we're letting them talk, Phil, looks like I'll be signing the agreement today for the Hotel Preston in October, 18, 19, 20. Guys, there's a few slots left for training. If you guys want to come to Nashville, contact us on 1-800-949-1408 and leave a message for us or get us live and say, I want to attend the training, give me the details. It's 3 days of training. So we limit the class to 30 people, and we already have 21 people ready to put deposits down. So these classes usually fill up pretty fast.
So the only thing at this point that we are going to probably keep an eye on is that when the presser ends, that we don't get a reversal, because there is a phenomenon where when they grind it up while he's talking, the minute he stops talking, all of a sudden the bid goes away. And then that's what we got to watch for. If they hold it up and we hold up overnight and we hold these gains, then, chances are we're going to see higher. But 5090 is going to be a key level now going forward. And in Bitcoin, again, that 52,900 is a key level because that's, if you look at the chart, we've had a lot of attempts down in this area. Right, that was our main March low, and on the derivatives too. This is a Bitcoin USD on Coinbase, but if you look at the derivatives, they had a lot of basically lows in that area too. Let's see, is this one?
Wow, a lot of reversals fill on my filter here.
So that's a key level.
Fuego today.
What's that?
I said uranium's been en fuego today.
Oh yeah.
Ura's ready to break out. It looks like a cup and handle forming. If you guys want a food stock, we traded this one before. This one's ready to go too. You guys ever Vita coconut water? Whatever they're doing the right thing. Buy signal on that today. I'm going to hold off on anything really tomorrow, but these are looking decent. Pharmaceuticals have been breaking out all day. Uber Technologies looks like it's trying to do a short-term bid. We already entered SVIX. Keep an eye on AG. Beyond Entex is getting a bid. We're already in MRNY, which is the Moderna one. But if you guys, it's a moral issue for you, but I'd rather extract cash. So I'll trade them if they give me a deal. The BOTZ ETF is running right now too. And so cut me off whenever you have something to say. I'm just still in dead air here.
All right, we got an hourly sniper buy.
Bill D's trying to fill the gap.
So this is a key spot for Bitcoin. ES is still pushing up. This is a key spot for the stock market too.
Rumble looks decent here too. RUM.
This level has been a problem area for the market, so we got to see it hold up over that. All right, here. Let's see here.
One of the high flyers, SNOW, looks like it wants to fly too.
Powell says, I don't really understand where talk of stagflation scenario is coming from given the data. I don't see the stag or the inflation.
No, inflation running hotter, GDP running lower. I just can't put my finger on it. Remember when Greenspan says irrational exuberance, he doesn't understand it?
Yeah, they understand it.
Holdings getting a bid. Phil, the REIT ETFs are all getting bids now.
He literally had a declining GDP print and, inflation pressures. Like, how do you come out and say, I don't see where that's coming from? You just literally got the data this week.
HB is getting a bid.
That tells you that they're very afraid of that to outright just paper over that like that.
Don't be an idiot.
We could have Powell says we could have a significant increase in potential economic output. Oh, okay. We could. Powell says we are not satisfied with 3% inflation. Okay. So that means that's your new target.
when you get it down to 6%, let us know.
Powell says I was around for stagflation.
You guys see the thing I posted? You got priority, Phil.
Powell says I was around for stagflation. It was brutal. 10% unemployment, high single-digit inflation, and very slow growth. Right now we have 3% growth, which is pretty solid, I would say, by any measure. And we have inflation running something. I think he's going to say inflation running under 3%.
Yeah, joke.
Restrictive monetary policy needs more time to do its job. Policy focus has been on holding the current level of rates. So markets are basically taking away that they have no interest in hiking, and it's going to come down to when they are going to cut, and they are going to cut. He said that if the jobs data warrants it, they will cut. So basically what you're being told is that this is going to go how typical recessions go, and that is bonds are going to get bid and stock market's going to go down, and so your alpha is going to be long TLT, short S&P 500.
Yeah, FCX is getting a bid, guys. Back over 51. We're in that trade.
And TLT will probably outperform everything. Bitcoin, gold, it's going to be that way for a while, for a few months.
Yeah, it's done that before. You have a 4-month window where it should go up at least 30 to 40%.
Yeah. I think TLT can get back. I would not be surprised if we saw $180 on TLT.
Yeah, I agree with you. At least 130.
There's a whole generation of traders, younger traders that never been through that. It's because they've preempted any kind of recession. We're supposed to have recessions every 5 to 6 years. That's like the average. That's the standing average. And we haven't had one since 08, 09. That's crazy. And it's because of the Fed interfering with the economic cycle.
Non-stop.
And now everyone is paying the price. And then, Bob, there's more data coming out that all those PPP loans that didn't have to get repaid went into property purchases and things like that. And the IRS is actually going in and trying to claw some of that back.
I don't know, I don't know how I know the people that cheated it, they definitely did. But if you provided all the information to them, you qualified for all their loans. I don't quite get what they're trying to claw back. There must be people that must have just told some whoppers,
Yeah. Powell said we will not take into account political events in our decisions. That is probably the biggest fib of the day.
Yeah. Speaking of fib.
I'll be nice and call it a fib.
Yeah. Janet Yellen's in my office right now, writing my words for me as I'm speaking them.
They just, it's like...
I swear they just think we're Dr. Dumbass and E Street Band.
Yeah, they really think we're going to believe that. Let's see here. What else has he said? What other untruths is he uttering? We are at peace that we will do what we think is right when we think it is right.
Now he's sounding like Kamala Harris.
Now he's starting to sound like Greenspan, talking in tongues.
Speaking of which, man, we haven't even seen Kamala Harris for like months, right? They just buried her in the office.
Oh, she's getting up to speed on how to run the country. We are at peace that we will do what we think is right when we think it is right. That is probably the quote of the day right there.
It's amazing.
That's probably the best one I've ever heard him say.
That's a word salad that the algos have no idea what to do with.
Someone asked, are you satisfied with 3% inflation for the rest of the year? Powell says, well, of course we're not satisfied with 3% inflation. 3% can't be in a sentence with satisfied. So we will return inflation to 2% over time. He's been pretty animate about that. They're trying to get him to trick the algos.
Yeah.
We've seen pretty consistent progress on slowing wage growth, but it's been bumpy. If wage increases run higher than productivity, there will be inflationary pressures. Now, I think that's a risk. I do think that's a risk.
Hey, Bruce, maybe Kamala can come and visit a small laundromat in Cleveland, part of her small business tour.
Yeah, you can give her a VIP laundry card.
To be a mom of the nation.
Mamala.
Kamala. Drew Barrymore. She's drawing her inspiration from her mother. See, my mom and dad had me high on drugs, attending adult parties when I was 13.
Yeah, Doomsday. I kind of agree with your sentiment there. I actually think that, barring something really negative happening in the month of May, because that's seasonally in the election year, you have to expect May is down or at least not going up. And then as we get out of May, you go into June and we should take off. So I actually think that if we can pull that off, we largely have seen most of the pullback. Then I think we're going to get just a crack up move. And, I would not be surprised when it's all said and done if we weren't near SPX 6,000. Bitcoin at 100, 115, something like that.
Okay, I'll take that. And then when you get there, guys, go to cash fast because the next 18 to 24 months will be absolutely brutal.
Yeah, yep.
Looks like Freeport's going to try to go back and fill this gap up here again. Phil, all the material stocks got a bid on this news today. So REITs and material stocks all got a bid. JP Morgan's up nicely. Mara's up almost $1.
So we're kind of stalling out here a little bit, right at that daily 9 EMA. So we got to watch that we don't start losing 5105. Bitcoin went up to that 59,200 level, slight overthrow, getting a rejection back down. Captain Shark, the TGA essentially, they're not really changing the composition too much. There is going to be a little increase in T-bill issuance, but it's quite a bit of, bond issuance over the next couple of quarters, especially Q3. Now, that was the case too going into Q4 and Q1, had a ton of issuance, and the market seemed to do pretty good with that. So how bearish that is for the market remains to be seen. I think the key thing, people say, oh, it's, liquidity, this and that. But at the end of the day, the market tends to follow net liquidity. And so, as you can see, net liquidity now, it's very whippy, right? So you kind of have to apply a smoothing to it. But it's been risk off. It's been dropping. I mean, it really started to turn at the top of the move here in March 25th and has been trending lower ever since. And so has the price of the market. So, and until I see otherwise, sometimes you get these brief, decouplings, I would call it, where like here it dropped quite a bit. Market didn't get the memo and then it finally did. Here's another one too, where it dropped quite a bit and the market's trying to hold up. But that's why we start losing these levels. If the market starts to sell after this presser today, we have still a significant risk of a move down further. And that's why that level, that 5090 level now going forward is key to stay above it, because if you stay above that, typically what we see then is the option flows, what they call Vanna and Charm, which are third and fourth order effects of option Greeks. Those tend to give a tailwind because the dealers have to based on dealer hedging, can be supportive of the market. So we'll see. And if liquidity comes roaring back over the next couple of weeks, then we'll probably get a risk on signal. And that means, buy stocks and buy crypto. This pullback in May is typical for, or pullback in April, is typical for, because you got tax day. Tax day takes liquidity out of the system, right? Because people aren't investing, they're paying taxes with that money. So that goes into the Treasury. That's net negative for liquidity. But historically, you'll see it turn in the new month. And that's so far we've seen that. So we'll have to see if it remains consistent through the end of the week and into next week. ADAP 230. All right, back to the charts. So the minute we got over the daily 9 EMA, it slowed down significantly. Bitcoin not following through on that big resistance level we discussed. Ultimately, I think this weekly 21 EMA down here, now we've stopped short of it. On the chart, if you zoom out on a weekly chart or a daily chart, it's going to look like we tagged it. So by and large, you could say that mission accomplished, even though we didn't quite touch the official level. But we're not out of the woods yet. And then VIX, if we look at VIX... Sorry about that. I'm going to mute that site so you guys don't get blown out every time. All right. VIX. Think about VIX though. We're still trending up. Like if you look at the lows, right? We're still holding higher lows, right? So we're still doing that on VIX. So what you want to see, if this thing's really going to start pumping, you want to see this thing start cracking below that trend line 14.5. Bitcoin's doing its best attempt at an Eiffel Tower here. So, and Bitcoin tends to lead. So this might tell us that maybe this pump isn't quite what we need in terms of pushing higher. We have to keep an eye on this. All right, let's see if he says any more anything enlightening. He's still yapping. He's reiterating that they'll take time. It will take time, but they're going to get inflation back to 2%. So I think they're very careful about not implying that they're open to 3%, because I think that that's just going to send the algos into outer space. So to me, I think they prepared very carefully not to infer that at all. Now, I think it's a giant bluff, because the reason for that, and why I think that ultimately they will succumb to 3%, is they've said things in the past like, such and such isn't on the table. Like remember Bob, it was like a 0.5 rate hike was off the table, or 0.75. I can't remember what it was. And literally the next meeting, they hiked it that much. So these guys will flip on a dime, even though they've been towing a line for quarter after quarter after quarter. They'll flip on a dime. The reason why I think 3% is probably inevitable is because they're telling you they're going to cut if jobs data goes south. And if you guys look at when you're in an inverted yield curve, which is our current situation, and you go into a lengthened pausing, you're going to get a rate cut. And it's always with a recession. So if you read between the lines, he's telling you recession's coming, they will cut, and that's going to be an easing effect. Now, unless the inflation or the recession is severe enough to cause a decent deflationary rotation, I think ultimately the easing effects are going to kick back in, and ultimately you're going to see inflation go back up. So once you get the inflation fire going, it's very difficult to get that thing back under you. I mean, you cannot ease at all for a very long time. So if we're looking at possibly easing by Q4 of this year already, I don't think that's a sufficient amount of time to get inflation under control. So we may get that 2% target briefly, but I think the way the economy is and how much money they pumped into the system from COVID, you're going to see it reignite. That's my prediction. And they're going to be stuck with it. And that's why they're going to tell you that, to accommodate the economy and support this and support you and your jobs and, get you back to work, we're going to have to suffer through 3% inflation. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's the way it plays out. Powell says they're very pleased they haven't seen the pain they originally projected. Possible that labor can stay strong with lower inflation. A rise in unemployment would have to be meaningful for us to react. Labor weakening would have to be meaningful to cut. It would have to be a broader thing that would suggest it would be appropriate to consider cutting rates. Dollar is relenting too, Bob. There's a dollar chart.
That's what we need to see for commodities to keep moving.
But I mean, the trend is pretty up. Until the dollar breaks 105.41, you have to assume though it's in an uptrend. So we'll see. Just the initial knee-jerk reaction, and this is why risk assets are on right now, because this is inverse of stocks and things like that. Now we're getting big negative ticks. So guys, this is the interesting part. Because remember, we talked about the daily 9 EMA. We need to see acceptance over that. So we've pulled back to it on the 5-minute chart here. Let's see if it holds. If that doesn't hold, then they got to hold 50.90. Bitcoin's, like I said, Bitcoin tends to lead. It's already telling us that it doesn't have enough momentum to get over that key 59,200 level.
I mean, look, this announcement is basically tantamount to saying we hit icebergs, but we think we can patch it.
All right, he's done talking, guys. So this is why we said when you pump during the press conference, watch when it ends, because if it starts to sell after it ends, then you have to be careful. So we'll stick with it here a little bit just to see if we start losing some of this. Because if this thing Eiffel Towers, that's going to be very, very bearish. And what I mean by Eiffel Tower is, like what Bitcoin looks like right here, Eiffel Tower. But we'll see.
Down. I'm expecting TLT to start getting more of a bid.
Chas, essentially, if you got like bundle one, you'd have, as long as you're able to see the signals, you don't have to be in front of the charts, but if you get the signal, like for a trade idea, I don't know if you are able at all to just like log into your account and place a trade like on your phone or something like that. A lot of people do. But I think that would be sufficient for what you want to do. Doomsday, I don't know. It depends. If they hold 50.90, I can buy bullishness. But if we lose 50.90, and again, that's because that's where you need to start seeing momentum hold. Otherwise, the Vanna and charm flows work against price and they start to push down. If we start losing 50.90, then what happens is you go look in your daily chart on the Bollinger Band down here, and this target area 50.17 becomes an issue. The other thing down there too, if we start rolling over, okay, I'm not saying we are, but if we do, we have to kind of go level to level here, because you just never know with these algos. It's more like if then. So if a level holds, then higher. If a level breaks, then lower, because it's just impossible to determine how the algos are going to react. But if if you look at on ES, go back to last Sunday evening when the futures opened for the week, we actually have a gap that was never filled. Got really close to filling, but normally when you have these intra-week weekly gaps on, especially on futures, it's more common on the S&P 500, and they hold. Very rare to have them hold on futures. So if I were to draw this, and let's just say we filled it to there, I think it was. Yeah, actually to here. We have a little bit of gap left to fill. All right, so now if we go fast forward in time, that's down here. So if we start unraveling, we start breaking below the announcement low, I actually think that 5,000 area is going to be downside destination. But so far, the bulls are doing what they need to do to hold it up over the daily 9 EMA. So like I said, level to level.
Yeah, I'm all set for today. I'm going to wait for the dust to clear for tomorrow before I jump on anything else.
Yeah.
Yes, this trade's working out just fine.
All right, Josh, sounds good. Yeah, Denise, I mean, they don't tell you the truth. And the reason why they do that is they're very sensitive to what the algos are going to do based on what they say. So they'll just use the excuse that it's for the better. But, you saw all you needed to see. GDP contracted. The inflation prints we got were higher than expected. So, but, stagflation is that's just like economic cancer. And he certainly doesn't want to see that on his watch. So that's why he's poo-pooing the idea of that.
Yeah, basically don't pin that on me.
Yeah, I think you've seen VK, you've seen today, they said they're going to slow the balance sheet roll off. That is a form of easing. And that also you have to ask, if they're so concerned about inflation, why wouldn't they, if anything, increase their balance sheet roll off? Because they have zero confidence that the economy can handle it, which tells you that the economy is pretty fragile, actually. Because, a healthy economy, the Fed shouldn't have any of these assets on their balance sheet. The reason why those assets are on its balance sheet is because the banks can't handle having them on their balance sheet, or the banks go under. So, they sit there and tell you the banking system's fine. If that's the case, they shouldn't be holding any toxic assets. And that's cool doomsday. Yeah, bank reserves are really important. So if I'm just looking at things here, we've obviously stalled out over the daily 9. When a hold, I think, is a big question mark here. The concerning thing is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, again, tends to lead. And if this thing had punched through that 59,200 and kept going, then I'd say, yeah, we're probably in for a solid rally here. But the fact that it's rejecting off, just know going forward, 59,250 is really important because, like I said, I think there's some unfinished business down here. I don't like this low. It's a double bottom. I don't like that. And so I think there's some business to be had around this 21 weekly EMA. And if Bitcoin's heading down there, I just think that it's not exactly risk on yet. And especially the dollar starts to crank back up. Now, if you look here, the dollar is starting to bounce. And like I said, the dollar is in a pretty good uptrend here, So we're going to have to see a significant weakening in the dollar. I don't think we're going to see that till June, personally, mostly because of election year seasonality. Look at the VIX, see if that's doing anything. Still holding that trend line more or less. Bitcoin's about to make a new low on this pullback. Now we're getting negative ticks, Bob. So what we're seeing is what we were talking about, where you get a bullish move during the presser, and the minute he stops talking, it rolls over. And that is not what you want to see.
Yeah, in these situations, Thursday is usually red. So just FYI. Our SVIX trade stopped out, but for profit. So if you bought 1,000 shares of SVIX and you took my 210 call trades on SPY, you're up $1,500 just during this press conference today. You're welcome.
Let's zoom in here on a 5-minute chart because this is kind of important. We'll stick around and see how this develops, but not what you want to see.
We got a Kona buy on ExxonMobil.
Guys, this is not what you want. Let me switch over to here.
Zim is green.
So this is the Heat Pro down here. It's telling you sayonara. You got a sniper sell telling you sayonara. We're losing the daily 9 here.
Our last half hour, Phil.
This is going to be an interesting end to the market here.
Agreed. It could just dump. We've seen that before.
Well, the bears are doing exactly what they should do if you're going to sell it off after the presser. So you shouldn't be back under the daily 9. That's number one. And we're starting to push under that. Now, do we have any 5-minute closes under it yet? No, but if this keeps dropping, we will. We got 3.5 minutes till this 5-minute bar closes, and it's about to take out that low. Bitcoin continues to build an Eiffel Tower. That's not good. VIX is starting to push up. That's not good.
Yeah.
So
that's why I set that stop on SVIX today.
The next level is going to be this 5088, 5090 area. That really needs to hold. Really, really, really needs to hold.
Okay.
VIX is starting to continue, or VIX continues to push up. Let's see Bitcoin. Let's put the announcement level for Bitcoin on the chart as well. Yeah, so that's the announcement, FOMC announcement. So as you can see, Bitcoin's much weaker because it's almost back to its announcement level, whereas ES has a long way to go. But remember, we said Bitcoin tends to lead. So Bitcoin was showing this weakness way before ES was rolling over. Now you're getting a big old bar on the 5 minute, and we're getting negative ticks, meaning that there's broad selling in the markets. But we're also going into this 5088, 5090 area. So bulls still have it, but if they start losing this here, then there's a problem.
What I'd like to see happen, Phil, I'd like to see a sell-off tomorrow and then start our run again Friday of the next week.
So far, positive reaction. So bulls are defending the level they need to defend so far. The other thing too is a lot of times you'll get a move off the 330 print. So if you look at the 330 print started up here. So this is call that the 330 print, right? Now, a lot of times what happens is you're going to get a round trip normally. Now, today's not normal because it's the FOMC, but normally you'll get a move. Now, this is a giant move off 330. Normally it's a mean reversion move and come back up. On normal days, maybe 1 out of 10 times you will not get that return trip, and that's actually pretty bearish. Bitcoin has nuked through the announcement level, so that's gone, which implies that probably going to see lower on ES. Bitcoin is just totally giving it up here. Now we're going to see if Bitcoin takes out that low and then cleans up, and maybe we finally get a tap of that 21 weekly EMA, which we have not seen for many, many, many moons. The last time we touched it was on October 2023, Bob.
Wow.
Where we basically left the station. We came back tested 25K for the last time, and then blew off. So been a long time in the works. I use step lines because they're a little cleaner in terms of like an actual touch. If you don't, sometimes it gets a little misleading. You think you touched it, but you actually didn't. But then after the bars formed, it looks like it did. So sometimes that can be misleading. All right, so we're starting to lose that key level there at 5088, 5090. If Bitcoin's any leading indication, then we're probably going back all the way to the announcement level on ES, and that's actually really bad. Most of these Fed announcements, once you break out of the initial reaction range, you're not going back below it. So if you're going back below it before the trading session is done, which is in about 25 minutes, that's extremely weak. That's not normally what you see. I'll be right back.
Yeah, we're rolling over. If you're ballsy, you can buy some puts for tomorrow. We had a worm turn on the SPY 5 minute at 507.27. It's down to 504 now. I didn't take it, but that would have been a nice put trade. Well, position sizing is tough because you have to know the size of your portfolio, but you shouldn't probably be any more than 5 to 10% on any equity trade of your total portfolio. And then your option should be basically 1/100th of the number of shares you're going to buy. So if you normally buy 1,000 shares of something, you're buying 10 contracts. 500 shares of something, 5 contracts. The best I can really tell you. Yeah, I own ADM, Doomsday. It's not gone anywhere. So that's why I hold it. I trade in and out of a few other food names. I'm in and out of MOS too.
All right, so VIX cranking back up.
Yeah, we're dumping hard, Phil. We had a worm turn about 12.10. Those puts would have paid bigly, but I didn't take them.
Bitcoin's such a good leading indicator.
I'm telling you guys, if you want to trade this stuff, Bitcoin next to your SPY trade.
I mean, I was calling that out a good 10 minutes before ES turned.
Yeah.
So we're, like I said, big level here, 21 weekly EMA. My belief is that, we may stab under it, but my belief is that we'll see this hold more or less. So you guys notice short-term stuff here. This is a 1 minute chart on the S&P 500 futures. Came right to the top of the announcement range and getting a reaction here, a bounce. So, bears obviously are making some headway. Bulls, though, if they can reclaim 5090, that's actually very bullish at this point because they lost it. One thing about the SPX, it loves to head fake. It loves to give you like a bullish reclaim where you break a level and then reclaim it, or a bearish reclaim where you break above a resistance and then you come back in. Gets everybody trapped and creates a pretty good reaction the other way. But until you get back over 5090 and get that reclaim, bears are short-term in control here. But I think Bitcoin's telling you that we're going back to the announcement, potentially breaking that range low, which again is not common. in these markets lately. That would be an outlier reaction. Personally, I think we're going to get this gap I showed you guys earlier, that gap down there. I think that's coming. I think there's unfinished business down there. I could be wrong, of course, but I think the way this is reacting, the way Bitcoin's reacting, I think they're going to take care of that gap. That was from not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before. They got to within 3 points of closing it and they took off. And I think that screwed a lot of people up. They got squeezed out. Normally, when you get within 3 points of a Globex gap, it's pretty much a done deal. And that's because futures close at 5 p.m. on Friday, close for the weekend like the markets, and then reopen Sunday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern. So there possibility of a gap depending if markets are, opening higher or lower, depending on if there's any, geopolitical news or whatever over the weekend. It can affect things. Otherwise, they more or less will reopen at the same level if it's a quiet weekend. So we have a monster move from the 330 print. I can tell you right now that 40 points away from the 330 print, and Bob will tell you that too, is a monster move. You're lucky if you'll see 10 or 15. Yeah. So huge amounts of volatility in the market. Okay, Bob, it's threatening to get back into the reaction range here.
I know. It's amazing.
This is definitely an outlier. Although if you've been with us a while, you'll know that this pumping during the press conference, you have to hold your breath for when it ends, because there's especially if you're not clearing levels. Like if you're just taking out levels left and right, we've seen that, then you're probably good to go. But when it started to stall out toward the end of his press conference, then you have to kind of raise your eyebrows and say, hey, this might be one of those scenarios where it sells after the presser. Yeah, so this range high, no surprise that we're battling there. The other thing that happens coming up here, as you get into the 350 time, there's an algo that fires off, end of day market algo. Some of that has to do with the end of day rebalancing and stuff like that. But at 3:50 p.m., you're going to see a jump, price will jump, and that's that algo firing. So we'll have to see if, the rats are jumping ship. If they do, then that algo will fire down. Right now, we're just a lot of volatility in the market here. We're just jumped up almost 20 points off the lows there in 3 minutes. That's for the S&P 500. That is extreme volatility. This is a huge market, much more liquid than Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's trading right along with it, albeit weaker. Negative 800 tick, so market's not digging it.
No, if it breaks it, you might get puts for tomorrow. I'm buying some puts for tomorrow, for Monday.
I would have to say that's, I think, given what we saw here, because this is a failed move. Any way you look at this, is a failed move.
Really failed move.
And whenever you see a monster move from the 330 print, and that's just a tip for you guys. You guys in the VIP room know all about this. But you get that kind of move, that essentially gives you a green light for stuff like buying puts the next day.
Yeah, especially since these moves tend to accelerate on Thursday.
Ponzi, you watch, you're going to bounce off that 50 or 21 weekly EMA, and you're going to wish that you went in at 1,000x leverage. And if I'm wrong, just forget I even said that. But that's a big moving average, especially when you haven't touched it for 6 months? 7 months, 8 months, you're going to get a bounce. Even if it fails, you're going to get a bounce. Like that probably would give you easy $4,000 or $5,000 bounce. But at that point, you don't want to lose 59,200 if that happens. You want that bullish reclaim to stick. SPY 503, I think, is a level that we don't want to see broken. If you break that, it's no bueno.
Yeah, we broke it.
Where are we at on Mr. SPY? Yeah, so that's a key level. So that's not good. That's not good.
Not good at all.
And, Bob, I don't know if you saw the chart here, but if you look at the VIX, look at the trend line on that, right?
Yeah.
This is where you buy volatility right along that line. Yeah. Buy volatility here. They're just giving you the trade.
Yeah, we're trying to flip the Ranger on the 5 minute here on SPY.
Ponzi, if you look at when Bitcoin's in a big parabolic structure, okay? Now let's just, assuming the cycle top isn't in, because you could make an argument for that, sure. But you would expect that you do get a pullback to something like the 21 weekly EMA. That happened in 2017, and you get a pretty good bounce off of that, and that's the low. You don't make a lower low after that. So if that's the case, then we're absolutely going to go back and make new highs. Now, you lose that, and you start getting down toward 50, then I could get on board with potentially cycle top, but we'll see. Because I think you have to be of the mind that this market could get, the next, basically find its legs again coming out of May into June. So if you see a pretty strong move around that time frame, then you don't want to, I wouldn't be trying to get or short that or fade that early, because, it could just be a one giant ABC move. And then, we get those higher targets we're talking about in a blow off scenario. So, that's pretty much it. All right. So ES, right? Bitcoin got down to the announcement first. ES is just about round tripping that. Extremely extremely negative reaction here. Extremely negative.
Yeah, and my puts are paying me bigly again.
Guys,
not tired of winning, Phil.
what's
Not
going
tired
on,
of
guys?
winning. 3 SPY trades today plus 2K. And I totally blew it. I wasn't paying attention at 507. Could have probably made another $2,000. It lulled me into a sense of complacency.
All right, so the 50 algo, what did we do on the 50 algo? It was negative, very negative. And this is just like yesterday, Bob, negative 50 algo and then follow through. So we're kind of in that regime now. A lot of times when it's not a bearish rotation, the 50 algo is up, or if it's down, they eat it right back. So now we're starting to see where it's just selling, end of day selling, pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And then we have one more algo that fires off at 5 till, so at 355.
I think oil didn't like this move either. Let's see.
Yeah, let's look at oil here.
Oil went right back down to the lows. Guys, This is it.
And you know what's ugly on this oil chart, Bob, is you have a head and shoulders on the 4 hour.
Yeah.
That's no bueno.
80.
So measure the move, right? Measure the move for that head and shoulders. You're looking at $74.33.
Yeah. Yeah, 114 is my line in the sand while I reduce size on ExxonMobil and clear my energy. We may get that whiff of deflation, Phil, that you get them to change their course pretty quickly. So you guys like the commentary today? Yes, no, maybe so? Denise P, is that a rhetorical question? Hey, Craig, I have Qcoin for 8 years now. I can't even access the brokerage I used.
Sayonara, people. You broke the announcement. So hopefully you guys, if you take anything away, is that Bitcoin's a great leading indicator. Everybody wants a leading indicator, right?
Jeffrey, join the VIP room. Thank you for leading it in. Phil, Jeffrey says, is there any way for us to get our commentary live every day? Yes, you can. TradeLikeAGenius.com. Join the VIP room. You get this commentary all day long.
And then some.
And then some.
Yeah, guys, this is very bad. No other way to spin it. When you round trip the announcement, because most of the time when we've seen this breakout move, right, in the last whatever, it's been always up, 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 up.
All right, guys, we're going to...
Chuck, on the left is the S&P 500 futures. In the middle is Bitcoin. And on the right is volatility.
Wow. Well, Phil, these SPY trades helped overcome half of my loss on ExxonMobil that I got to live with.
Yeah. Well, I think going forward, I think there's probably weakness to be expected overnight. We could even potentially gap down tomorrow, guys.
Yeah, I'm holding my SPY puts overnight. This is classic, what we're seeing right now.
Mm-hmm.
They did not like this at all.
And for Bitcoin, you got the Asian session that starts at 8 p.m. Eastern with Japan, and then Hong Kong and China 9 and 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And those Asian sessions have just been nothing but giant pillars of salt for Bitcoin. Just made Lot's wife look like a salt packet.
Just don't look back.
Yeah, all Asia does is look backwards, fire and sulfur. So I am expecting that we may, again, the big level, right, we're looking at is this 21 weekly EMA. So let's see if we get bids. Let's see if we get some bids filled down here.
Yeah, they're really pumping hard on everything now. Everything's getting washed out.
Yeah, look at this, Bob, into the close. Just even the 55 algo.
Yeah.
55 algo down. Like normally, guys, if you get a 55 algo or 50 algo firing, at least one of them gets a retrace. None of this is retracing. This is just all heading for the exits.
No, this is shake and bake. What we saw today was a shake and bake. And tomorrow we should get follow through.
Bob, 60 points from the 330 open.
I know. Phil, at 507, I had the sell signal, and I was messing around with something else until got to 504.
Yeah, guys, I can't tell you how much of an outlier move that is from 330. That's just a monster move.
That's liquidation, guys. Everything's liquidating, by the way, except for TLT.
Just a monster move. So as we wrap up, I think the bond issuance is a little bit of an overhang for this market. I think there's unfinished business, like I said, below. I think you have to keep an eye on so if we zooming out now as we wrap things up, the Bollinger Band on the bottom here is at about 50.14. All right, that's going to close that gap we get down there. That's a big magnet now for price. So that's your downside target. As you guys can see, when we're in this regime, right, negative gamma, or we're not getting to a point where the gamma is going to be constructive for the tailwinds, then you can easily ride this lower band down. And we've seen that before in these corrections. You'll write it down till you get oversold, and then you have that mean reversion back to the middle. So essentially, that's what we've done. This is confirming you that you're in a bearish rotation because that mean reversion got rejected really, really hard. That coincided with the 50-day moving average on the S&P 500 too. So you had, not only did you have the middle of the band there, you also had some confluence there with big moving averages. So I think you have to basically brace for a push under that band at this point because it's just so weak here going into the close. Big alerts. All right.
We're dumping.
Yep. Yeah, guys, no bueno. No bueno. And all these little lows here on Bitcoin, this is not clean. This is, this is going to probably get cleaned up later. Maybe it's going to be the Asian session. Big alerts. No bueno alerts.
All right, Philly Dog.
All right. Yep.
Catch you guys tomorrow.
Guys, thanks for joining us. As Bob was saying, you can get into the room with us. Head over to tradegenius.co or tradelikeagenius.com. Any of the specials. Special number 1 will get you in the room. If you guys want to hear us all day, we have that VIP room package as well. And this is what we do. So
called 4 trades out today, $2,400.
Imagine that.
You guys heard them all. So anyway, guys, we'll see you later. We'll do this again soon.
All right, guys. See ya.
Trade Genius.